Hello, welcome to NOLA Stamping. So this week we're going to be making a super fun stamping card, and we're going to be using the Perfectly Pears stamp in a completely different way. So let's get straight into stamping. So we're going to take the pear from the Perfectly Pears and just use that as a vase. Like, it really looks like a flower vase to me. And then I'm going to go ahead and just stamp those flowers at the top of the die. And then I just, with the photopolymer stamps, you can always sort of just cut them apart and use them separately. And then when you want to use them together, you can just cut them or just put them together on your block. So I'm just going to go ahead and use Old Olive and stamp a couple of the leaves in there, just part of the vase. And then I'm taking a water brush and just pulling just a minimal amount of ink like off of my stamp pad. And I'm using so little water here. You don't want any of the ink to run too much because that'll kind of spoil the look. But I love being able to pull in the exact color of ink that I'm using on everything else. So then I'm just going to pull down and do like a straight line for the stem of the flower, and I'm just using Old Olive there. Okay, so speaking of Old Olive, I am going to grab a piece of the Old Olive that I have from another project, and then I'm just going to, at the very bottom, stamp A Good Friend is a Gift. Just sort of in the middle, just in case I want to cut it out, and that way I'll be able to dovetail the sides of it. And then I'm going to use the larger die from the Fright Night thing and cut out of the rest of that Old Olive the frame for the vase on the front of the card. So then there's only one little piece of stamping left, and that is on the card interior. So I'm going to cut a piece of white that is 4 inches by 5 1/4, and then I'm going to cut a piece of 8 1/2 by 11 Calypso Coral for the card base. And I'm just going to do a fold in half to make the A2 card base for that. So go ahead and just score it in the center at 4 1/4. So then the card ends up being 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. So that piece of white is just a little bit smaller. So that's 4 inches wide by 5 1/4 inch tall. And then I'm just going to use the Calypso Coral. And there's a couple of different options for the interior sentiment that comes with the Perfectly Pears. So that we've got congratulations, hello, and thank you. And I thought thank you would work nice. And then I'm just going to take the flowers and second generation, stamp those up in the corners just to give it, just to tie it together like from the front to the back of the card. And then I'm just going to go ahead and use my tape runner and adhere that to the card interior, giving it a nice little even border all the way on around the inside of the card. And then for the front of the card, we're using a Florals paper. This month we're focusing on the Florals in Bloom paper. However, I cannot find my pack paper, so I'm going to be using this other floral paper. But you would do the same thing with the whatever paper you want to use, the DSP. So you cut a piece that is 4 inches by 4 inches, so it's a perfect square. And then go ahead and cut it from tip to tip, creating 2 triangles. And then we're going to cut a piece of the Old Olive again, and we're just going to cut a piece that's 1/4 inch wide. So I'm just going to go ahead and grab another scrap piece of paper, and I'm just going to cut just like a 1/4 inch wide strip, and then I'm going to use that to act as sort of like a a little border for the two triangles going across the front of the card. I used a liquid adhesive to put them down just because it was on my desk. And then I'm just using my little paper snips to even off the corners so everything fits perfectly. So I'm going to use the bigger Stampin' dimensionals to just sort of pop up that little tag feature that's going to have the vase on top of it. And I don't want it to go too far. So I'm going to put that down straight onto the card base using a tape runner. And it's perfect the way that flower accidentally lined up. So that's kind of exciting. But like you just sort of want to center it in the card front area. And then I'm using a green, like a pen, just like a little marker pen, to just sort of mark where the like lines and the shadows would be. Totally optional, because after I did it, I was like, it doesn't even really even need it. But, you know, at the time, I thought that would be kind of a fun thing, neat thing to do. So I'm trying to cut down my sentiment that I had stamped on the old olive, but it's really narrow, and I accidentally got it a little at an angle. So what I did was I just put a tiny little bit of my tape runner on the back of it, and then I just, you know, sort of put it on the cutting mat, or the cutting board, and then cut it down, and the tape will just sort of act as a way to keep it like in place. So that's kind of nice. That's a fun tip if you're ever struggling with your paper trimmer. And the glue just comes right up, so you can just if any glue residue is left behind, just to sort of zhuzh it up a little bit with your fingers or with an eraser. So the pears come with this fancy little die cut with the little hatches. I'm not sure what it's supposed to be. It looks pretty cool, but I felt like the card had enough with everything already, so I didn't need to add it in there. But I sure was trying to fit it in. So really what I did was I just dovetailed the edges of my sentiment and added a couple of Stampin' dimensionals to it. And I'm just going to put it on the top of that vase. And then I'm just going to take a piece of crumb cake baker's twine, and I'm just going to quickly tie a little knot and try and like size it down for that vase, and attach it to the front of the card. I can't, normally I would use a glue dot, but they seem to have disappeared from my crafting area, so I need to find where those are, because those are perfect for putting a little bow in the exact right spot without it being visible all over the place. I used a couple different methods, and nothing was as effective as those glue dots, although I did cut just a tiny piece of the mini Stampin' dimensional, and I ended up using that to keep the bow in place, because otherwise it tends to stick to your finger, blah, 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 blah. So, glue dot is the best, and second best, Stampin' dimensional. So I definitely put on the holographic resin dots and forgot to hit record on my camera, but you've seen me bling things up a million times, so I put them in the flowers and in the corners, and that is it. So I used the Fright Night dies in a non-Halloween way, and I think it looks gorgeous. And then the Perfectly Pears is not a pear, it's a vase. And I think it came out looking super fun, and I think it'll be a great card to send. Well, thanks for making this card along with me. I hope you made it or made it your own, and don't forget to stay crafty.